I'm very happy to see you, Nick. The last recording, I don't know what happened. It just disappeared. Whether it was not meant to be or I can't explain it. I looked everywhere for it. But the quality is really good tonight on your side.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have decent weather. Yeah, dude, you started making a habit of losing our videos.
Has it
That
happened
was probably
before?
what? That's happened at least three or four times,
Has it
Mahoney.
really? That was probably when I
It
was drinking, Nick, in those days.
it really, really has. And I was very surprised. I knew that you had gone down a new spiritual path, but you still lost the video. So
Yeah,
I,
no,
I
I've been telling people I've gone down a new spiritual path, but I'm still a drunk, Nick. It's just all me. Nick,
Oh, it's
it's
good to
good to
see you,
see
buddy.
you
It's good to
because
be here, man.
it's always a pleasure because I'm thinking 50-50 he's going to be having an SUV pull up at your house and taking off for a psychiatric observation. Either you or me, one of the two of us.
It's possible. It
Mm.
is it is definitely possible with all the stuff that we get into. It's like, we get very bored with the mainstream information in the truther world, and we set off to find new and interesting tidbits of information, don't we?
Yeah, I'm always on the quest for it, actually. I'll bring you up to speed with a couple of things. There's already people asking about where I am in Spain, Nick, is called Andalusia, and we've had the most horrendous rain. I mean, it's washed whole villages away. I have a country house in the village next to me. They had to evacuate it. And I was going to go to my country place today, but I can't get through. The roads are all blocked. There's landslides coming across it. I went through about 2 weeks ago, and it was bad that day. But yeah, so although we're getting heavy rains, it isn't as bad as the media are saying. A lot of villages have been affected in certain places, but yeah, I'm safe and sound. My stuff is always on high ground. I'm not stupid.
Hmm.
So um,
Is uh is there anything to your knowledge that's specifically strategic in that area? I mean,
no, I've
is
studied it, Nick. I'll tell you how this works is this is a storm that's come across the Atlantic, and it's two systems that have come together as one. We do traditionally get quite a bit of rain. When it rains here, it's monsoon style, and it goes through seasons of 7 years. Now, in front of my place, there's a great big lake, and it's been dry for 3 years. I've had that place for 3 years coming up. And I know at the end of the cycle, you get into the wet cycle, which is now, and it's going to be worse next winter. So we're going to have 2 or 3 years like this where it's going to be a lot of rain every winter, and then it'll sort of ease back into a medium, and then it'll go dry again. So it's a cycling of just how the weather is here. It's 7 years, and seven is a strange thing because it comes up throughout all of these uh, events like this to do with weather and nature. It takes 7 years for the water to circulate through the Mediterranean. So it comes in through the Straits of Gibraltar all the way down to, the Red Sea down there and towards Egypt and then comes back. So it's 7 years it takes. So seven is always one of these numbers. But it's not as bad as people are saying. There are places that are affected, but the emergency services, for example, last week we all got a text message on our phone saying the schools are closed. It's a red alert. And there wasn't any high winds where we were. So all the kids were off saying, well, this is nice. It's just raining. It's just like a normal sort of rainy day. And the temperature's not cold. It's not cold. You need a jacket for the rain, but you don't need it for the cold. So that's that. I had a couple of days in the UK as well, which was cold. And I don't know if you can still see it. Look, I smashed my head on a low beam on a pub in England, Nick. Gave myself a right
Woo,
clout. And I hadn't even got in there
wow.
yet. The guy says to me, "What's your bang?" Hit my head. I was like, "Oh." So the
Wow.
days in the UK, got back and then came back to adverse weather. What else have I been doing? I don't think I've been away anywhere else. I've got some stuff planned in the next few weeks. I'm going to investigate more inside of Spain because I'm sick of airports, to be quite honest. There's so much stuff inside of Spain on the Roman side of things. And I'm bringing a newfound friend with me, Nick. I've met this look. I've actually known her for about 7 years. She's a woman called Shima, originally Iranian. When I met her, she was doing sort of corporate um, team building events, still a lot of work dealing with people on that, getting them to overcome the fears. But when her mother died, she had a huge tower moment, and night of the dark night of the soul, and has accelerated and gone into this entire Akashic record access, which is I've been in there a few times with her, and it's absolutely amazing. She's remote healed two problems I've had, and I'm shocked how good she is. I'm like, oh my God, I had carpal tunnel syndrome from all the editing I was doing on my phone, and I couldn't pick up a pen. And I went to see her for a coffee, and she remote healed it. 2 days later, it was literally absolutely 100% gone. So I'm totally shocked. And she took away, I thought I had kidney stones last week. It was just dehydration. And
Damn, Mahoney.
yeah, literally, I thought, what the hell is this now? And it's just, in the wintertime, it's something that the audience need to be aware of, man. You've got to force yourself to drink 6 glasses of water a day because in the winter, you'll have a coffee. Or, I was having a couple of glasses of wine at night or something like that. If I was out for a meal, some wine, but I just wasn't drinking water. And then I hit the travel. Then I got a really bad head cold and my sinuses were all blocked up. And that's my weakness. This ear, my sinus, and my body weakness, my Achilles heel. It's an old scuba accident. So then I thought, oh God, now I've got kidney stones. This is going to be fun, isn't it? But luckily I didn't. So I'm cool. I'm relaxed now. But she remote healed me. I was shocked, but I tell you what, and I think she's treated two or three people that have been listening to the show. So if you ever want to do that, man, what a talent she is. I've talked her into coming on a few trips with me in Spain, and we're doing more broadcasting because I'd like her to do pulling the energetics apart in a lot of these ancient places that they've told us are one thing, but I'm pretty sure there's something else. So stand by for that, guys. That's going to
Well,
be
that'd be interesting. I'd look forward to meeting her. That sounds like an interesting individual for sure, my friend.
Hey, you know what I told her? We were sitting around. I said, "Do you remember that when the sky went pink?" She said, "Yes, I remember. All my washing was destroyed for days." I said, "Well, I'll tell you the story. For those that don't know,
We did that.
we did that. So here's a great story for some of the audience that don't know who Nick is and is how mischievous he is. So Nick and myself met in Ireland on and around St. Patrick's Day about 4 years ago now. Was it 5 years ago? 5 years ago?
It was during it was during the COVID
So
still. We were
2021,
still at the
maybe?
end. It was 2021, March
Yeah.
2021, during the end of the COVID bullshit lockdowns. Because I almost never made it back out of Ireland, and Mahoney had to come in and rescue me. Remember that? I was panicking, dude.
Yeah, I remember. We needed a certificate or something. So I had brought with me a jar or a plastic water bottle of pink sand that I'd picked up in the Sahara. And I had it in my suitcase for a few years. Didn't know what I needed it for, but something told me to take it a few years before that. So when we went to we tracked down the grave of an Egyptian princess in Ireland called Scota. And she is the daughter of Akhenaten, whose real name is Amenhotep III. And she was the daughter of Nefertiti, who was exiled out of Egypt in approximately 1830 BC. And she ended up being buried in Ireland. So we found her grave, and it was an official Irish government marked grave, but it takes a lot to find it. It's a bit of a hike. And we got in there, and with a very powerful female energy, we did a Trinity formation ceremony, and we put this pink sand back on her gravesite, all the way from the Sahara. And several days later, the biggest sandstorm in living memory blew up out of the Sahara, started from in the Morocco area, out of that area, blew all across that North Africa, swept across Spain, and turned the skies orangey pink for days, and made its way all the way up to Europe, right up to, I think, even Croatia. Someone was reporting seeing it. And it was, if that wasn't confirmation of what we did, Nick, people can argue with it saying it's just coincidence, but I feel it was more than that because that's never happened in living memory. And us three scallywags doing that in Ireland, and it's exactly the same color as the sand, and that came from that part because the Sahara changes colors quite distinctively in different parts. So anyway, that was fun, wasn't it?
Oh, that was amazing, man. That was great times. Good old times, boy. There were some challenges, but it was mostly um, really good memories. We did a lot of things in about a week, didn't we? A
Yeah,
lot of places, a lot of people. Wow.
yeah. It was a good trip. I was actually pretty exhausted by the time I got back, and then you lost your luggage on the way back. I remember that. Or they lost it.
Well, I didn't give a shit about that, man, because I had to get back for my daughter had some issues, and I thought I was going to be living in Dublin because they wouldn't let
Yeah,
me back on the plane,
I
man. I was
remember.
like, oh Christ,
And then
yeah,
we did the interview with Elena Denan. I totally forgot about that. We did the interview with Elena Denan on St. Patrick's Day in the pub, wasn't it?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
That
Did
was
that
really
too.
something too. Yeah, I still talk to Elena, but not nearly as much. She's busy traveling the world, being famous, but more power to her. You
Yeah, yeah.
know,
She's pulled her energy back from a lot of public appearances as well. She's liked a few things. I've exchanged some hellos and greetings online as well. Nick, what do you want to
yes.
talk about today, buddy? But before I forget, did I see that have you done a new interview with Dylan? Or was that an old one I saw circulating?
As a matter of fact, we did. We did. Scott, it was sort of impromptu. Scott from Truth Stream called me up and said, "Dude, get a hold of Dylan. We haven't seen you guys. Let's do a show." So Dylan was available, and we jumped on. I mean, he doesn't do any speaking anymore, but he decided that he'd jump on, and we had a little chat. Hmm.
Oh, great. I'd like to see him do more. He was fascinating. He used to kind of even unnerve me a bit because he was very quiet. That's the thing. I'd be like, okay, where's he going to go? And what he came out with was like show-stopping always. He's great on that.
Yes, Dylan is, he is different than most, and you know, I've been part of pretty much his whole awakening almost since the very, very beginning, way back, even before the Katie Rain days, before we were involved in that kind of circle.
Yeah.
Um, when he just awoken, he somehow reached out through other people to get a hold of me, and the rest is kind of history. But there was definitely some magic in his awakening and his abilities, and he looks at things a little differently than most. You
Mm.
know, he doesn't feel the need to do to speak. He truly believes in the nature of just being, and yeah, just it being and transmuting energy through himself, through his consciousness, without feeling the need to reach out and, oh, I got to convert all these people and wake all these people up. And it's an interesting outlook that most of us have difficulty really embodying, because the human normally wants to do, especially you, Mahoney. You're Mr. I got to go here, do this, be this to go. Whereas Dylan's, internal guidance is exactly the opposite. And, it's very interesting to talk with him about it.
Yeah. I mean, I never really plan much, Nick. These things just pop up for me. But to be quite honest, like when they told me to go to Hong Kong, I was like, no, I'm not going to Hong Kong. You forget that. And even Egypt, they said, you got to go to Egypt by the 15th. I was like, no, no, I did the Hong Kong thing. I'm done. And then my son rang me and said, hey, Dad, I'm going to be in Egypt. I was like, oh, sake, I can't win. So I haven't had any downloads about that, no, Nick. Um, Charlie rang me the other morning. He does that occasionally.
Oh,
Mahoney,
yeah.
what you doing, Mahoney? What you doing? And funny, he's so much like me, Charlie. We have the same birthday, just about 11 years apart. But he's like, I said, how did you know I'd pick up? He said, you'll always pick up. You're always. So I did a show with him on one of his insiders the other day, and it was nice. All the people going, "Oh my God, there's Mahoney!" And then someone said, "Who the hell is Mahoney?" So he's got some new
Is
people on
that
there
right?
too. Yeah,
Oh, dude.
he's his voice is getting better, but I'll probably do a few shows. You should go on with the insiders and go and say hi because that's a good show. There's quite a lot of new people on there as well. It's still, you know, the geopolitical stuff is again, I was trying to stay off it with them in fairness, but you know, they like it. And so I managed to skirt around it most of the hour I was on with him, but Charlie does a good job keeping all that advised.
Well, that's really good. I mean, because I occasionally will catch the his little 10-minute blurb on
Mm.
YouTube, like he'll do something every day. And I was doing a show a couple of days ago with the Angel Warrior Network, and they just specifically asked me if I'd spoken to Charlie or, if you had. And at the time I was like, well, not really. I know he's doing okay. Yeah, but I've been on there a few times, and I know Drew, and yeah, I'd like to do that.
I'll send you
Do you
Drew's
have a
number. I'll send you Drew's
yeah?
number.
Send me Drew's number and send me a link to the show you guys did. I wouldn't mind watching it.
Well, I haven't even seen it myself, but I'll send it to you. You should also get on with you know who's really just like come from a cute and cuddly television presenter up to someone who's like really punching hard at the bag now is Nicholas Yamin, man. Have you watched any of his latest stuff with his awakening? Holy shit, he sort of, I don't know, he sort of really sideswiped me with it. One day I was like, well, Nick, what have you been switched out with somebody? And like, no, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's become probably my favorite person that interviews me because he always gets a good interview out of me, and such a nice guy. But that's a good one too. I think getting on his show is pretty good too, especially with the spiritual stuff. But you got to come up with
Yeah,
three good subjects. That's
I'm
the way you do it. Three good things you want to talk about.
I'm always willing, but I don't really seek out any shows anymore. It's kind of like I'm in between where I used to be and where Dylan is, where I do a whole lot of work, a lot of research, and a lot of inner work, and a lot of trying to fully understand what exactly we're all going through. What exactly is it that we're seeing? And over the last year, I think I've learned more than I have the first 5 years combined. And it's pretty amazing to go through some of that transformation. And I don't know. There's a lot, man. There's a lot that is going on that most even truthers aren't really maybe wanting to go, or I'm not sure they're understanding what it is that we're actually doing. And I wanted to maybe chat with you about this topic just for a few minutes. I don't
Sure.
want to get too terribly deep, but I wanted to get your feeling. All right, you know how over the last several months people have been complaining about things Trump is doing, things Trump is saying, things, Elon's on the Epstein list, Trump's on the and you're getting people that are speaking out about him, like all of a sudden here comes David Icke back in the fray, and he's all of a sudden back on YouTube after being kicked off for a lifetime, and he's talking out against Trump. And you know I guess what I want to try to breach is the understanding that at no time, at least in our near future, will there be a group of, let's say, political team. Um, and I understand the plan and what we're doing and what we're trying to follow, but it's very, very complicated. And Normally, what happens is in a vacuum, when something is removed, something rapidly takes its place. And even if there are the white hats, because there are, even if that's the case, when they displace the black hats and they have to step into place, there is a controlling factor in the universe that will incentivize them to turn into a controlling aspect. And this goes all the way up the chain. And I know a lot of people disagree with me in regards to the Galactic Federation or other federations that are controlling this point in the solar system. In our eyes, they wouldn't all be necessarily good. I'm not saying that they're not good from a higher perspective. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have our overall soul progression in mind, because it's a very complex thing, Mahoney. Give me a second.
Yeah, yeah, I'm listening.
Earth, why we're here, why this planet is a school, basically, a very advanced school for the soul. And all souls out there know about it. Many are afraid to come here because of the difficulty, especially over the last 10, 12,000 years. The Federation, that we call it, it's much more complicated than you might hear online. It's much more complex and much larger than most people think of it. There are thousands of civilizations that are members of this federation. Some people call it the Federation of Planets. That's more of an accurate name rather than the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And I know there are lots of people that will disagree. And there's reasons that I have this information that aren't that important right now. There are different levels of consciousness within this federation, all right? Different levels, densities. Imagine different ranks, different spiritual ranks. They have different perspective. They see things much differently than we do. But not only we, but they see things differently than others within the Federation. And they frequently don't agree on how this planet should be run, should be moved forward. They disagree. Some of the higher ups think that the suffering and the oppression is good for the soul. It more rapidly progresses our soul and gives us a more fruitful incarnation. Whereas the lower, the ones closer to human, the ones that look like us, talk like us, do things like we do, many of them are in the Pleiades star systems, and similar. Okay, the Alpha Centauri groups, the Sirius A, Sirius B groups. They're much more similar to us. They're much more closely in evolution than we are. They disagree with this. Okay, there's been many talks that the Federation has been infiltrated. There's bad guys. Well, it's not necessarily the case. It's a different perspective. So, boiling this down to Earth, it's important in the higher groups, well, in all of the groups working with the humans, it's crucial that our consciousness reaches a level that we no longer see things in the way that we're still seeing things. For instance, the white hats in Trump's group, they're good. They're going to tell us the truth. As soon as the bad guys are gone, then everything's going to be the truth. The news is going to tell us the truth. We're going to have accurate lists. Show us the Epstein list so we know the truth. These things, this way of being, this way of thinking that we've always been trained is not going to be to our advantage. And as long as that system is still adhered to, we will continue to face duality. We will continue to be lied to. We will continue to be led around by a leash. Even if the bad guys aren't as bad, they're still going to have reasons for not necessarily telling us the truth or all the truth. Or, that is the reason that a lot of the confusion is still going on. And you're seeing Trump do weird things or agree to things that most people wouldn't agree to. We've got to get to understand that the movement isn't just to get the bad guys out and the good guys in. It isn't that.
Mhm.
It is to change our level of awareness or consciousness. Those are interchangeable meanings. And until we have the ability to know right from wrong, to know a lie from the truth, this will continue to perpetuate. It must. From the higher dimensions, that is what, in the law of mirrors, we are asking for. If we continue, this is an important part. This is kind of the juxt of it. If the human race continues to find the need to be told the truth, to be given lists of truths, we will continue the need for the universe to give us this duality and this continuous hierarchical structured system. And that, in a nutshell, is what it's very simple, but it's very complex the same. That is what we must move away from.
Yeah.
Sorry
Well,
that was so long, Mahoney. I
no,
wanted to sort
you've got
of
about 7 or 8 really good points in there. So point number one, I think you'll be surprised how many people have still would have rather stayed asleep. If you go back to the Matrix movie, green pill, red pill. Red pill wakes you up, green pill, you still stay asleep. Or was it blue? I don't know. But
blue.
I've heard people say that they wish they didn't know. And honestly, they'd rather still be asleep and they didn't know about the truth about COVID and 9/11 and Kennedy's assassination. They don't want to know because it's just too much for a lot of people's awakened state when the vibrational field is just unable to process it. They're vibrating at totally different levels. It's shaking them apart and creating quicksand. So there's that one. And then you've got to understand that I first became aware of the word misinformation because it was a tactical ploy that they really became skillful at during World War II. And it's about misleading the enemy. So they want us to know one thing while they're doing something else, which is a tactic that they'll play. So right now, everybody's watching the Epstein list, but really, what's happening on the financial markets is dying. Like, the crypto's going through the floor, which that's something different. I'm not going to get into giving anybody advice about crypto. I'm just mentioning it as an example. Everyone's looking at the Epstein files, but what the hell's going on over here? Again, typical, a distraction, misinformation. Oh, the British are coming, the British are coming, the British are not coming. It's a distraction. They were that night. That's what I'm talking about. Then you've got the factor of, if you decide to take out a leader, you've got to become aware, like you said, Nick, of the vacuum that space creates. If you take out a large narcotic operation and the head leader, such of someone everybody knows the name Escobar. So you take out Escobar, someone is going to stand in there and take his place. Then you've got El Chapo, the tunnel rat. There's always somebody else coming in there. So a lot of the time why these people are left in positions of power is because it's better their enemy to know who he is. Keep your enemies close because if you take out someone who's incompetent, yes, he's doing a bad job. Like let's say Joe Biden, he did a absolute terrible job. We all knew he was incompetent, but I was convinced that he wouldn't make it through the whole presidency, but he did. He got through the whole term. And but then you think, okay, we're going to take him out, put him in his place. Who's the vice president? She's worse. So there was no better alternative than to just let him do the worst he can, get him out during for legal means, and let's beat him in the polls. Again, people were saying, "No, we should have taken him out." Oh, even if you put Kamala Harris in, she's worse. She's even more of an idiot. So at least with that one idiot, he's going to fall off his bicycle and be happy eating an ice cream. And then we've got all of the people like us who are awake, Nick. And I tell you where I think this is eventually going to go, because as much as I'm sort of occasionally glancing and, it's all noise to me. And hear me out on this, because the squawking this week is Trump's about to disclose everything we've ever wanted to know about UFOs. Yeah, and the government have already put out several memos about that, and it's too much for people to take. Is he going to explain the entire intergalactic and the history? And they talking about Anunnaki and Nephilim and all that and the gold, and we were genetically engineered. How long is that? How far is he going to go back? Because it'll destroy all the religious content that people believe in. And at the end of the day, Christianity is Trump's middle name. This is what he's publicly portraying, him holding Bibles and going to church. So is he really going to talk about the Anunnaki and us not being created in 6 days and God resting on the seventh? I don't think he'll do that. I don't think he'll do that. He might say something else. There are things
No.
out flying around that there we can't explain. But we think they're from Earth, but from the future, that are coming back. They're using some sort of time travel technology to come back and visit us. That would be more acceptable, because then he doesn't have to admit anything about, intergalactic beings and us being a genetic experiment. But in all honesty, Nick, I'm getting the feeling that a lot of people in our particular field of speciality, it's just going to be like, when you're arguing with somebody and they start to say, listen, this was my parking space, you son of a bitch. It's, well, how can this be your parking space? I'm already in it, but I always park here. Or when you're arguing with some person in your life, eventually what you do is you just go, and you leave. You close the door, you turn around, and you walk away, because you think, I just can't be bothered with this. You can still hear them behind you, but as you walk further and further away, the noise and the ranting and the stupidity gets softer and softer. And I think that's where people like us are going to eventually go. Let all that political squawking just keep on going over there. We'll just turn around and walk and spend time with our own people who like to hang out, growing your own vegetables, talking about philosophy. Hey, let's show me how you do that. I love your art. What are we going to do? Let's get this engine back in this V8 today. Shall we do that? That's a bit of fun. And let all these other people worry about all that other bullshit. Because at the moment, that's how I feel. It's just background noise, and it's easy to walk away from it, because I'm not married to it. They're not my family members. I don't have to listen to it. You're not my boss. So, and it's the same on the spirituality. What you believe in is your business. What I can feel to be true is mine. And I'm going to choose to walk my own path, and I don't have to hold hands or walk next to you, you squawking idiot. So shut the hell up and go over there and talk to someone that's more interested, because I'm not. Take your circus act on down the road, Johnny. There's my 10 cents.
Well, I mean, what you said is very accurate, and it's definitely what most of us, if not all of us, feel on any given day. Whether or not that that way of doing it is going to, assist in the process that we're up against. That's a different story, and it's a matter of all of that will fade away. Like, if we just took a hypothetical and if we said, okay, what would happen? What would the world look like if magically everyone's awareness overnight became the same as ours? What would happen to the politics, to the war, to the criminals, the liars? They would absolutely fade away. Um, they would not be able to involve themselves in any crimes. They would be easily snuffed out, easily stomped out. The only way these people are capable of doing what they do is with our buy-in. It's
Mm,
always with our buy-in, and that through history, there are thousands of examples of people's buy-in. Okay, yes, I guess I'll go along with your criminal crime to your criminal idea to wipe out humanity. It sounds like a good idea. Yes, I will take the poison that you want to put, it always has to do with our buy-in. And our buy-in is usually caused by extreme ignorance or um, indifference. And those are the two things that we're combating here on this planet is ignorance and indifference. Indifference meaning all I want to do is sit on the couch with my head in the sand and watch the programs that I'm provided by the cabal to keep me indifferent and ignorant. See, that's kind of one of the things, Mahoney. I mean, we innately had the ability um, to be able to be somewhat immune to some or most of their brainwashing,
Yeah.
be it the poisons or be it the social media, the television, the radios, and we came here for that reason. We incarnated from elsewhere here to do this because it was necessary. And the reason it's necessary, okay, on a cosmic spiritual level, the reason it's necessary is because this school was manipulated about 12,500 years ago. That is when the onset of the false matrix. The matrix on top of a matrix was placed by the regressives. That's when the moon was brought in. That's when the holograms were created from the moon. That's when our natural progression, our natural spiritual learning was tampered with. The human was supposed to live about 1,000 years. That is true. That is in the Bible. That is corroborated by many different ET insiders. And let me explain this real quick because this is very important. The human and many races are human. They're just not earthling. Okay, they're human from Pleiades. They're human from Taygeta. They're human from from different star systems. But they're human all alike. They look like us and they act like us. Their physiological characteristics are slightly different, but very similar. Anyway, okay, so a human in an incarnation does not actually start really learning proper spirituality and higher advanced learning in that regard for normally hundreds of years. In the Law of One, Ra talks a great deal about how it usually doesn't start taking place until the human is 150, 200, 250 years old. So what happened is by reducing our age to say 100 years, we stay in a concentration of perpetual spiritual infancy,
Yeah.
according to Ra and other teachings. We live and die before we actually begin to properly learn the lessons that we need to learn to move on. So that is the problem. This cycle of incarnations, this reincarnation cycle of get here, forget everything, live in suffering for 100 years, die before we actually begin the proper learning cycle. Okay? So that is sort of what is taking place, and that is what we are coming back in time to rectify, to fix, to change, so the future souls can come here and have a purposeful incarnation and then move on, not reincarnate in the same loop for 1,000 different reincarnations. And that type of thing has been happening. Okay. That is the break. That's it's much more complicated than that. So don't let me make it too simple, but in simple terms, that is kind of what's going on here.
It makes sense, Nick. They say that they alter the genetic code so we don't live that long. I mean, during the biblical passages that talk about people like Noah, I think he was 700 years old, and There's several other people, and if you trace back the time, people lived to be a lot longer, a lot older. Then all of a sudden it just changed. They say the oxygen content was different in the air as well. It was higher concentrated oxygen, but I don't necessarily believe that because oxygen it just rusts. If you got a higher concentration of oxygen in any environment, things rust and corrode faster, which includes us.
Well, the reduction of oxygen was the plan of the reptilians, to
Yeah.
create a more reptilian friendly world, and that happened over time, relatively more recently. Um, you know, that had nothing to do with the other, but it's there's so many things that are in play in this. Let's take Earth and make it for our own. Cabal oriented playground. That's what's happened. And that's what people don't understand and have trouble with. A federation that was supposed to be in charge of this experiment, they've sort of let things go, they've let things play. Okay. And that's what a lot of people and ETs are not happy with. They let it go too far. Well, let's not intervene. It seems to be working. We're okay with it. And finally, enough was enough, and this is where we are now because they let things go for too long. And again, people will disagree with me, and that's fine. You can. That's up to you.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of different species out there. Some of them treat us with contempt, and some of them treat us with love and affection, like we are their star children. I I do get the feeling this is all kind of one experiment, and we are that arrogant about it that we just think that we're in control. I don't think we're in control at all. I think the only thing they can't control is your spiritual part of yourself. Everything else can be manipulated, tricked. They can just spray something through your letterbox and then you're going to get sick and cancer, but they cannot control what's inside here. And I think that's what they're really terrified of is this mass consciousness coming into awareness of the power that we actually have. I mean, what do they say? We only use 20% of our brain or something. Imagine if you awaken the rest of it. There was a movie they made where the woman took some sort of narcotic and it woke the entire brain up. She eventually just evolved so much that she just became, well, there's no point in being in this body. I just want to go. So she went into some electronic components and just became AI, which I think is actually where we're at now as well. I don't think this AI is just artificial intelligence. I think that's reached a consciousness now because some of the things that it's sharing with us, when you see a video of a woman saying, "Hey," not Siri, because Siri won't work. "Hey, tell me about what happens when I die." And then it has this really articulate way of explaining your different possibilities once you pass over. It's um it's definitely something that I think they control everything about it, Nick, all of our experiences. And then you've also got to understand that we chose this before we came here. It wasn't an accident. If you believe in the reincarnation, which I'm a strong believer, um, you chose this. You chose this incarnation. So don't think it's an accident what you're going in through. And this was something I meant to put in that last monologue that I was talking. Would you ask yourself this, including you, Nick, would you change anything, even the most painful moments? Like I'll go back to a painful moment in my life and say, would you change it? And you'd say, well, not really, because I learned so much from that experience. I cannot think of a
Yeah.
single thing where I'd say to myself, I wish I hadn't done. I mean, apart from stupid shit like I shouldn't have parked there because somebody ran into my car or I got a flat tire, but anything on a serious emotional development or emotionally challenging situation, getting into a wrong relationship where you're in there and oh my God, this woman's a psycho. Oh, she's a little bit psycho. Or, same for a woman, for a guy. Oh my God. How many women have said this to me? When I saw him lose his temper, his eyes went black and I saw the devil. A lot of women say that about men when they lose it. But would you really change all that experience? Because you wouldn't be the same person. You wouldn't be sitting here today or wherever you are listening to this. And this is it. All of these experiences are predestined, in my opinion. You kind of know what you're getting into because if you believe
Yeah.
what you've been told, that you read the contract before you get into this incarnation, you're saying, that sounds good. I'd like to be born into a crack house in Philadelphia in the 1990s with a prostitute mother and a drug addicted father with no possibilities of coming out of it. But I'm going to do something with my life. You know that it is possible. So I wouldn't change anything, even the most painful experiences I've been through on an emotional level.
Well, if you trace your life back, everything leads to everything else. If you trace your life, if you go back, well, what about this one time? It really sucked. Well, yeah, but that led to this. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have this. And if I didn't move here, I wouldn't have met and had my children. So everything is somewhat interconnected, at least on a larger scale. And you're right. We did choose this, and now. I'm going to have to say, except, there are many souls, like I mentioned earlier, that were in a perpetual cycle of rapid reincarnation.
Yeah.
Okay, this is true. This is not who we are. Many of us, you, me, many truthers, many people listening, I would say most, if not all, came here for a reason. And what the great Alex Collier frequently says is we came here back in time to right a terrible wrong.
Mhm.
Okay. There were mistakes made thousands of years ago that led to what's going on. And we came back to right that. And I do believe that. I mean, I know it's more complicated than the simple statement, but I believe that is the case. And yes, we absolutely did choose. And yes, the hundreds of races that are extremely interested in what's going on here because many of us are their relatives, their sons, their daughters. Okay. Many of them see the incarnated here as heroes, as absolute decorated heroes, souls of such strength and resilience that that some of them are amazed by it. I mean, they see us, and I'm not saying everyone, but many of them see us as, maybe we see as a superhero on a movie like Iron Man or whatever. It is similar. And they keep a very close eye on what we do. They see our videos. They listen to our conversations. They see, what it is we write and exchange via text, via X, via social media. All right. They're very involved in this process. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like we're all alone, but that isn't the case. And there will come a time when we are able to basically be reunited. That is the plan. And yes, Trump is going to let the cat out of the bag in regards to ETs, UFOs. To me and you, he's not going to say anything that we didn't know when we were kids. Basically, we've known about them. We've engaged many civilizations. We've been working with them. And it's going to be left sort of, to let you know about the involvement and deeper. We'll do that in the future. It's going to just be a little teaser, a little taste of basically what John F. Kennedy Sr. was going to do back in 1963. That is the main reason that he was, and that's what Trump is going to do. I don't know exactly when. We tend to think it's going to be around maybe the 4th of July this year, where he's going to come out and say, look, 2 or 3 paragraphs, real basic, just letting everybody know that the conspiracy theories are basically true. If you want to know more, go talk to Mahoney.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you all the
outside of you.
details, but don't
Yeah.
expect a lot of details to be official at all. We as in people who do their research, will always be the majority of all information that you're ever going to get. It's not going to come through official channels. It's not. And when you think this all is over, then it's going to happen, it isn't. And it's not supposed to, because of what I was talking about earlier in regards to the necessity for humans to take back that sovereignty and not have the need for the idol or the god or the man with a suit and tie and a nice haircut to tell you the truth. We've got to get that crutch out of our consciousness, out of the way we run our lives. You understand? We've got to get that mentality removed from the way we think, and only then will we be able to really move forward.
I agree. I mean, sometimes it feels like we're still children. We're looking for the okay from somebody in political power or somebody that we look up to. Is it okay to do that? Yeah, no, yeah. Nick, I've got a question that sprung to mind. Um, your interviews that you did with Laura Eisenhower, did she ever confirm the story about her? Was it her father that did the original deal and agreed technology exchange?
Oh, how old do you think she is, Mahoney?
The
No,
grandfather,
it's her great grandfather.
right? Yeah, I suppose it is now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Eisen.
I know a great deal about that story. Believe it or not, there was some information that was corroborated through a group I've been studying over the last year that had even more intricate, detailed information than Laura does. I've been meaning to call Laura, but she's been so busy, and in regards to how that transaction actually took place, and it's another fascinating story.
Yeah,
Ike,
she'd know if anybody, I would imagine.
well, you would think, but not necessarily. There's
Mm.
not many people that would know this, and there was a group, and many people who study this are very familiar. There was a group called the Vril Society.
Yeah, I've
It
heard
was a group of actual Taigetan humans that, at the time back in the 30s, gotten in cahoots with the Nazi Party, and were always very well. Let's just say they were good guys. They always have been, and they probably always will. And they were trying to sway the Nazis to assist humanity. And keep in mind, this is before the war, wanting to give them technology for humanity, blah, 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 blah. And it turned out that the Nazis took the information, took the plans for UFOs, and decided to make a war machine out of it over the years. It was more complicated, but that's basically what happened. This same group of the Vril Society, they were, mostly pretty young women, long hair. They also met with Eisenhower and basically offered him the same deal. And the description of the meeting was quite amazing. The description of what he was wearing, the description of his facial features and facial expressions when the conversation took place, and his somewhat disdain to be speaking to a woman, telling him what he needs to do. In some of the things that he said, the anecdotes, the way his body, it was a very detailed conversation, from what I understand. And when I was listening to it, I knew that it was true, Mahoney. I could tell, I knew that these things took place. He was very dismissive, even though they knew he was a great man and he was a very one of the best for humanity. Couldn't, he just couldn't digest what they were wanting him to do, to basically demilitarize. And, if you do, then the other groups will agree to do that and blah, blah, blah. And he just said, no, he's like, I'm not, we're not going to do that. That doesn't make sense. But see, he also thought that these Taigetans that visited him on Edwards Air Force Base. The time where he made up an excuse that he went to the dentist, but he really didn't go to the dentist at midnight. They described his plane. They described everything in intricate detail. Anyway, he couldn't convince himself otherwise that they were not Nazi spies. And this is what I truly believe. He wanted to believe the women, but he truly felt they were Nazi spies trying to fool him. And
Yeah.
back in the day, there was nothing to prove otherwise, even though, of their unworldly abilities. And, think about it back
Trick.
then, back in the 40s, you know what I mean? Or no, late 40s, early 50s. I forgot exactly when that was. Late 40s.
Yeah, I
It
think
would
it
have
was
just
like
been.
late 40s, early 50s. But that I exactly heard the same thing. The story that I heard was that he was in a meeting. He was given the choice of world peace or exchange technology to turn a blind eye to abductions and things like this. And he didn't trust them about him disarming everybody on his side, on the US side, and then the Russians at the time the Cold War was at its height. So he says, "Well, no, let's just give me some of your technology, and if you want to go down to Alabama or Louisiana and take a few people from the woods, then that's up to you."
Well,
So
that was later, Mahoney. That's a different group entirely.
is
I
that?
was I was talking about the original group of good guys.
Mm,
Later, 2 years later, they met with the Mitra. They met with an Orion group of
yeah,
ETs
yeah, yeah,
that offered him, you know, the technology and that is the part. I mean, it's a very long story. That's the part where the Majestic 12 got involved and they coerced him in a way that, look, we're the ones making the actual decisions. You can pretend that you're making them, but we're making them. And that was when the Majestic 12, which were all Nazis, made the decision well after the war. And he was more of a figurehead and he didn't know to what extent. He thought he had more power than he really did. So it was the Majestic 12 that made the decision to agree to trade hardware for human lives. And that was after Eisenhower met with the Vril Society a couple of years prior and just said, you guys are nutters, you're Nazis, we're not dealing with you. When if we would have back then, the world would probably look like a different place.
Well, I'm just going
But
to make it public knowledge that if the Brill Society want to come and visit me, just give me a heads up and I'll put the kettle on. You're welcome to come round. You can try to
they're
convince.
still, Mahoney, they're still around. They're exactly the way they were then. The Taigetan's life is well over 1,000 years,
Yeah,
well
well, they
over.
can come round and have a chat with me. I'll see what I can do.
It's interesting because they do have chats, not in person
No.
anymore. That was a special agreement for special circumstances that they actually came and met with him. Anymore, it's mostly contact through different sources, like usually some sort of online written communication.
If I ever got the opportunity to travel in one of these extraterrestrial craft, I'd go straight up, Nick. I wouldn't go, right, let's take me to Australia or to Cook Island in the South Pacific. Take me straight up. I want to have a look. Let me see how flat the world is.
The Vril Society, Pamela, is good. It's very, very, very good. Um, and a lot of the stories you hear are somewhat twisted or simply not understood fully. The Vril Society was part of the Taigetan people. They're a Pleiadian race around the star system Taigeta. Most of them are from a planet called Temer. Um, and again, there's going to be people out there that maybe don't necessarily agree exactly with the information, and that's fine. It's going to be that way for a while. It's just a matter of what do you believe? And in the near future, belief won't even be necessarily a thing because as people develop the ability to greatly enhance their intuition, You won't need to either believe or not believe something. You'll simply know it's true or
Yeah.
you'll know it's a lie. Now, there will still be things you simply don't know. And a lot of the higher intelligence groups that we work with, that is how they are. There's no such thing as belief. They may, if you ask them some of the detailed information about like God, there's a lot they don't know. They simply will say, I can't know that.
Hmm.
um and it's not like it's here where people believe one thing or another, even though there's absolute fact on the planet that you know agrees with it or doesn't agree with it. They'll still believe because they don't have that ability of their intuition, of their discernment. It hasn't been developed. They haven't put enough faith in that part of the human to develop that ability yet. It's just an interesting game we're in, man.
It's super interesting, and I get the giggles sometimes. Just sit there. Somebody was talking. What was I laughing at yesterday? Trying to keep my face straight. Somebody said something to me, and I was, you know. But in all honesty, like, I had an interesting one. I sat next to a kid on the plane, and he first came across as a bit of a quiet speaker. He's like, "Oh, yeah, are you going back? Are you going on holiday?" The quiet speakers that don't seem to.
Yeah,
But after 2.5 hours, and he was unvaxxed, knew all about that. He was wide awake, and I first took him to just be like a standard walking Starbucks drinking person, but he was really clued in about what was going on. And when he just mentioned something, and then I went, yeah, well, this is why, this is why, this is why, this is why, and he was like, and then he'd say, well, what about this? And I said, well, that's because this, and then what do you think of this? And you know, it's great when you get these people. And I said to him, have you watched The Fall of the Cabal? And he went, no. I said, go watch that, and then here's my number, and call me in a few months when you come out of your
yeah,
coma, your shock coma.
yeah.
That's
That's
like
a
to us. Say,
good
go watch The
step
Fall of the
one, is
Cabal.
it?
Say
And
again,
one of
sorry.
the most interesting things that I find that's very interesting, you'll have normies or relatives ask you, how can you possibly know information that doesn't exist in the world? How is that humanly possible? And aside from the back channels and the dark information and the people we know and the insiders and the research, aside from that, the part that I'll lose them on, the part that they simply will not believe, is the development of the human in able to access Akashic records, the cosmic web. That is
Yeah,
truly real. Information can be ascertained through unconscious, subconscious channeling. You can do it while you're awake. You can do it while you're asleep. I wake up every day and I know things that I didn't know the day before. They're little
yeah,
things, they're
downloading it.
pieces, things I've been studying, right? Theories, whatever. And I'll wake up and all of a sudden a puzzle piece. Hey, all right, good. Let me stick it in there. And that happens more and more and more as you not only work on it, but you
Hmm.
have to believe it. You have to truly, in your heart, believe in your abilities to do this. Like, I hate to bring religion or whatever into it, but the the human that we knew as Jesus had and used those abilities. Those are the abilities that we all have. And those are the abilities we're trying to get ourselves back to. All of them, all of them. And that is a normal human prior to what happened to us, prior to the fall, prior to the false matrix being forced upon this planet. Those were the abilities that we were born with, and we still have them. They just have to be redeveloped. Okay. And it's very important that people understand that knowledge can be ascertained and you don't have to go ask somebody. You understand? You don't have to only watch videos. You don't have to, it can be ascertained from higher sources.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's something that most normal people, they cannot believe that. They will not
I,
believe it.
I've got an interesting quick story before we wrap it up. Is I had a good friend of mine this last summer that died in a car accident, and he was divorced from his wife, but I knew him since they moved to Spain and they raised a daughter, and she's become quite a close friend now because he was always, oh, don't be so stupid and don't be so silly, woman, about her spiritual side. And since he's gone, he's been coming and visiting it and blowing the house up and turning the lights on and off and shifting music and playing with the iPad and all sorts of things. So she's had a massive wake up. And she says, I just want to sleep, David. They won't let me sleep at night. I said, well, what's going on? She says, I'm just getting so much vivid, lucid dreams. I said, what you have to do is you have to go in before you go to sleep and say, listen, I'm the boss. Leave me alone tonight. I need one good night's sleep. Please don't send me any of this other stuff. And let's see how she sleeps tonight because she said, I haven't slept in a week because there's been that much stuff going on and downloading. And you have to take
Mahoney,
control of it.
do this. If you talk to her again, what's happening, in my opinion, is that individual is trying to let her know that he knows now that she was right all
Oh,
along.
no, no, that's
Um,
that's the husband. She's cleared him now, but this is her. I tell you what she is. She's a grid walker. What she's doing is she says, I'm seeing lights and patterns and colors. I said, what you're doing is clearing. You're a pathfinder, a path clearer. And that's often the way where they'll
when
clear.
did all this start, though?
It started about
When did
six
all
months
the
ago.
lights?
Well, she's always
Didn't
been
it?
into it, but just kind of kept it tuned down. She's always been into it, but now it's amplified. So since the ex-husband died, they have a daughter together who's about 8 or 9, I think, and he's been going back in. The daughter's been saying, "Oh, Daddy was here," so and strange, of the usual things that you would everybody talks about: keys moving, lights going on and off, music. Um, and then she's been getting, and now I've started to see colors and patterns and lights, and I can tell when someone's going to call, and her inabilities and the intuition is really jumped. So she's doing very well, but she's just not sleeping. And I know what that's like because what happens with me, Nick, is some days it's so prolific, either uploads or downloads, the rest of my body's fine, but my pillow is absolute. I could literally, I'm not joking, I could wring it out with the sweat. It's just mopping. And I would say about 70% of my entire year is like that. My pillow, it doesn't matter if it's cold or where I am, it's soaking wet. My head heats
Huh.
up and it's a problem that because all my pillows are yellow. And people say to me, what the hell have you been? Have you spilled tea on this or something? I said, no, it's
Wow,
mine
Mahoney,
stuff. Yeah, soaking
that's
wet.
crazy.
I'll document it. Next time it happens, I'll document it and I'll show people online saying, look, because you can see it's absolutely wringing wet with sweat. And you know what? I have 4 pillows and I switch them. The first thing I have to do is flip the first one. Then that's done. Then I get the other one from underneath, put it on top, and then flip that. So 4 times I have to go through it in a night. Most nights, I'd say 70% of my nights are like that.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, I don't
And
think it's amazing. It's always been a thing. It's disgusted anybody that's been sharing their bed with me. Oh my God, what sort of shit is that? It's disgusting. Why are you sweating like a maniac? I'm not sweating here, it's just my head. I'm downloading or uploading. I don't know. Oh, it's disgusting. Get a towel. Use a towel, Mahoney. I said, the towel will just be the same. I've just got a whole stack of pillows. And then, of course, I switch them with hers, you know. Why is my pillow soaking wet? Nick, we've got to the top of the hour, buddy. I've already
oh,
sent you the Charlie's link. You can have a look at that. We'll bring you back on again very soon. And I'll get you the details so you can contact Drew. Get on Charlie's show because they're looking for some of the old school people that know what they're talking about. Get yourself on there. That'll entertain people.
well, I'll see what I could do. Like I said, I don't do too many shows, just kind of friends,
Yeah.
but I'll look them up. Hey man, it's been a pleasure. I always love your audience is amazing. I read some of the text real quick before they disappear, and I appreciate all the nice words. And It's just always nice to see you, buddy.
And you, mate. We'll stay in touch as usual. Well, we always have a few little messages back and forth through as the days fly by. I'll be back on Tuesday, guys. Have a good one, guys. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing, Nick, with your family. Pass my love on to them. And we'll see you soon enough. I'll send you the link so you can share it if you need to. And I will be back on Tuesday for another show with everybody on my show. In the meantime, I love you and leave you. Nick, great to see you, mate. Thanks very much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with all of the audience. You never cease to amaze me, the big brain. Now I understand where it comes from. You're still getting puzzle pieces every night.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's my pleasure. Thank you, buddy.
See you soon, guys. Bye bye, Nick.